Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Brand new today, what are we reviewing? Things in Gibson boxes that are not Gibson branded. That's right, the day has come. The Epiphone USA Casinos have finally been delivered to my door. I think I've been waiting on this like, what, almost a year? But this was a new Guitar Day purchase on one of these, but I decided I wanted to feature both of the colors anyways, because this is something brand new for Gibson that they're trying. They're reviving Epiphone as a USA brand. Not for everything, just for like their really high-end vintage models that people know. And it seems like Gibson is going to keep pushing this and just have a whole lineup of Epiphones. So we've got the Casinos that we're going to talk about today, but they've also revived two USA Epiphone acoustic models. They started with the Texan, and then they just recently brought out the Frontier model. I'm not that into acoustic guitars, so I don't see myself reviewing any of the USA ones of that. But as far as any electrics that they do, yeah, I'm all for that. Because they previously did the Coronet model. And I've always wanted to review it. I believe it was one of their more solid body guitars, whereas today, the Casinos, it's a hollow body. And we just reviewed a Gibson ES330 not too long ago, and I did that for a reason, so we'd have a comparison point. But whoa, check this out, a gray case. Okay, I was kind of expecting like our regular cases that Gibsons would come in. This actually feels like one of their import versions? Okay, I guess we'll have to see where it was made and what kind of a case it is. But the Casinos have been famously used by so many artists, but the reason why they chose this one is because, you know, the whole Beatles phenomenon. There's a bunch of Beatles fans out there that want a Casino. And before today, your options were true vintage or one of like the import models. But now we have like kind of an in-between the vintage ones and the import ones. A USA made variant in a very beautiful finish. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab our first impressions here. I mean, you gotta remember, these are actually made at Gibson at their USA plant. Looks like we've got some dust and stuff coming out from the guitar. If you ever wonder why you see that all the time on semi-hollow and hollow-bodied guitars, is because they get jiggled around in shipping, and the stuff that's like kind of caught in here that you can't necessarily get out, that's how it gets out. It gets out when they're shaking it around in shipping. So first impressions here, it feels just like a brand new Gibson, but yet at the same time, it has a different vibe to it. I mean, it definitely has a different headstock than the Gibson. But if you block that part out, I mean, besides the giant E on the fretboard, this definitely looks familiar, but the finish feels different. I don't know how to describe that. I don't want to say it's like plasticky, but I think it's supposed to be the same nitro finish. I guess I will have to look on the spec sheet to verify that. But whoa, check that neck out. I don't know if it's showing up in the camera, but it has like this very long ribbon flame to it. And this is the vintage burst finish. So that's kind of cool. And then, oh my goodness, the back of the headstock, it has the Gibson style serial number. This one was made on the 56th day of 2021. Okay, so this is a made in China case. Now, don't get all up in arms. Hey, I thought these were USA Epiphones. I think it would have been a nice touch to have a USA case to match that, but even some of the Gibson USA made products, they come in Chinese cases. But this one, it really does feel just like, you know, the import modeled style cases. But at least it's a cool color, right? Silver, blue. But as far as case candy here, looks like regular Gibson USA stuff, including our little baby photo here. And of course our multi-tool and all our other good stuff and polishing cloth. But as I told you, I got you one of each color. This was actually the one that I was not as impressed with in the photos, but looking at it right here, it doesn't look half bad. But besides the vintage burst finish, there is an awesome iced tea, because I thought that was the one that looked the best in the photos. So we'll have to see how it looks in the flesh. All right, in here, the official color is called Royal Tan. Let's see how it looks. Oh no, this is the one that I didn't like. So this is the brighter colored finish. I guess it depends, what your own personal preferences are on that. But yeah, this is the one that I wasn't as impressed with. It's the other one I thought was going to look good. It kind of reminds me of like those light burst Les Paul traditionals. So if you've seen one of those, you're going to be familiar with this. But hey, this has got like a little bird's eye right there. Two dog-ear P90 pickups. They are Gibson USA pickups. At least that's what the spec sheet says. You've got an ABR1 bridge, but it's one of those like faux BR ones. So it's got the studs. And we've got our trapeze, and this one, just like that other one, it's almost a little bit of a darker finish, but sometimes that just varies example to example. But this one, oh, that's interesting. Okay, does it have a burst? I'm wondering if that's just a staining difference, or is it supposed to be like that? Because it's almost like they did like a natural burst on the neck, because it's very dark here and there, but then a little bit lighter there. So either somebody gave me an unintentional burst, or it just didn't quite get the even stain there. But this one was made on the 77th day. So as far as the reissued casinos, as I was telling you, this kind of like bridges the gap between buying a vintage one, which is normally between like $4,000 to $6,000. I haven't followed the market too much, but that's kind of what I saw just looking on Reverb real quick. But in the olden days, there were double pickup versions as well as single pickup versions, and you can find a multitude of tailpieces. So you've got the trapezes like this one, but there's also a different trapeze that has like a stair-steppedness to it. And then you could also get some sort of like a vibrato arm stock from the factory. And then of course, you could also just add a Bigsby. But as far as pricing for these brand new beauties, you're at $2,699. So a little bit less than half of what a vintage original might cost you. I guess it also depends how good of a deal you're getting versus like the import models that are, anywhere between like $500 to $1,000. It all depends. So without any further ado, let's go ahead, throw one of these on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs, and then get to that playing demo. Alright, before we go too deep into this, I thought I would explain a little bit more about Epiphone history just for the guys that aren't familiar with it. So, Gibson purchased the Epiphone company in 1957. Before that, in the 30s and 40s, Gibson and Epiphone were big rivals in the archtop scene. So the casino actually wasn't birthed until 1961. So the fact that these are being made again in the Gibson USA plant just as the originals were back in Kalamazoo, it's kind of a nice complete story that they're together again, I guess you could say. And for a couple of years, Gibson just kind of continued the Epiphone lineup as its own separate thing, but then they cut it off and used it as their cheaper import brand models. But then starting in the 80s, there were USA Made Epiphones again, and then they kind of shifted them overseas and to become what they are today. Then recently, 2019-2020, they kind of revamped it again to make them higher end guitars, but still be imported, and then also brought back the USA series. So the Epiphone company, kind of interesting. But let's go ahead and dive into this and see what they're doing here. So our neck pickup here is actually labeled specifically for this model, Rhythm P90 Casino. So that tells me this is not just any old regular Gibson P90. There might be some sort of like a special winding specifically for these guitars. But the rest of this is looking very similar to the one that we saw the last review and demo for the Gibson ES330. Within the Epiphone lineup, these are known as the E-230TD, TD standing for Thin Line Double Pickup, and then you can see Casino and our serial number here. As far as the construction goes, it's very similar to the 330, but there is like a little bit of a channel route right here that was not on that last one. I mean, you can still see that maple cap in the neck right here. It's just a little shelf out of the top that they carved out for some reason. But here you can see the same maple poplar maple sandwich of woods that creates the top, and then you get your spruce bracing on the top there. And you can also see it in the bridge pickup cavity. This one's definitely kind of rough looking in our pickup cavities. And this is kind of what I expected to see on that last review, where the P90s like impress into the finish. It wasn't like that on the 330, but these pickups must have been put in when the finish was fresh. You're also going to notice that exact same like cut mark right here where the pick guard rests against the body's finish.
I think if they would just put like a little spacer here, like some archtop guitars, they do get like a big black spacer. But I think something like this that they put on the backside of these to prevent little dents and dings would be apropos for that. But sometimes those start to affect the finish and, you know, then you just don't win. But I think it's kind of sad that if you do take the pickguard off, you are going to have a little bit of a mark right there, because a lot of people think of the Casino without a pickguard thanks to John Lennon. But something else that's actually different between the two finishes is what kind of pickup covers you have. So this one, the Royal Tan, you get black plastic ones. They just sit over top of it. It's nothing too fancy. However, our other one, that's the reason I ended up buying both, is because I love the metal P90 pickup covers. They're so cool. That's something you don't see on a Gibson every day, and I think it looks great. Now, of course, you're gonna get some fingerprints because of that, but, you know, now I'm kind of warming up to this particular finish simply because it has something a little bit more special to it right there. As far as construction-wise, this is a completely hollow body. There is no center block, but it still has that mahogany block up here that the neck joins into. There you can see the rest of the spruce bracing, and you can see your curving right here. And they are wiring these up with orange drop capacitors and CTS pots in here. But as far as the bridge, watch out! This is an ABR1, but it's one of the ones that doesn't have a wire retainer over these, so these will just easily fall out. So we'll be careful when we're showing you the branding on that one. But as I was telling you earlier, this is one of the Gibson USA variants, so it actually is not traditionally mounted in the guitar. It has a stud within the body instead of just being, you know, a direct screw into the wood. But you also get one of those Allen key adjustment ones, so if you want to raise the action or lower it, you don't even have to use the thumb wheels. And it's just got our regular trapeze tailpiece down here. The ball end of the string just kind of sits in there, and then it gets pulled taut and it stays in place. And just like that other one, our strap button is a little bit lower on this guitar. But the output jack is located on the front, and we've got our regular controls, 2 volumes, 2 tones. Let's go ahead and grab our DC reading. So our bridge pickup is pretty hot at 7.92, and the neck position 7.88. So both of those together, about 4. A little bit more on the pickguard here. It is multiply, so a white, black, and white layer. You get the metallic E there for Epiphone. But take a look at that. This bracket actually uses 2 screws on the side and 1 up here. I've never seen that before. So that was kind of interesting to see. As far as rest of the guitar QC wise, I am noticing a few slightly deeper scratches, like most notably right here. You can see like a patch. I don't know if this just didn't quite get buffed enough, or maybe it got buffed too much, but you can definitely see some imperfections on this one. Now granted, you're gonna have some polishing swirls and whatnot, but you know, this one, some of these issues I think are a little bit more than I was expecting. And then right here where the neck joins the body, you can kind of see some polishing compound that was left over. I tried to get most of that out, and it definitely looks better now than it did, but this particular example definitely had some stuff going on. And you know, maybe it's just the darker finish shows off the scratches better, but this lighter colored one, I didn't necessarily see anything too crazy like that. And the edge was much cleaner on that one. The only thing I saw on this guy is it looks like when they were tuning it up at the factory, their auto tuner kind of scratched it up right there in a circular fashion. Other than that, I would say this was definitely the cleaner example of the two, but I wanted to document my favorite finish. But anyways, moving on from our maple poplar maple body, we move on to a straight up mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard. Now I really like these inlays. So they're a small block, but they're kind of askew, making them a parallelogram. They're still acrylic, but they look so cool. It's a nice difference. Like if you were trying to decide between like a Gibson 330 and one of these, I personally like these inlays just because they're a little bit different, but ultimately I probably prefer the Gibson headstock shape. But I guess it depends, you know. If you grew up with the Beatles and all these other guys using these, you probably like this guitar better than a 330. So this guitar, I don't think it's meant to take over the market, but it's just meant to fill a gap in the brand new era for people who want a nice Casino. As far as neck dimensions here, we're at a 24 3/4 inch scale length. It is a 12-inch radius according to the website, but I think the vintage ones, from what I quickly read online, again, I'm not a master, they're supposed to be a 14-inch radius, so I think that might be a slight difference on these guys. But then our nut width is 1.69 inches, which increases to 2.07 by the 12th. Our C-shaped neck measures 0.89 at the first fret neck depth, and 0.99 by the 12th. Here's what that neck profile looks like on the contour gauge, 1st fret and 12th fret. It's not a massive neck by any means, but it's very rounded. But as far as quality and construction, I mean, you just have the typical light tooling marks around the edges of the fretboard and on the fretboard themselves, but the fret nibs are looking pretty good. Looks like, unfortunately, we have like a small chip out of the fretboard right where the nut meets, so maybe there was a mishap when installing that. I guess once you see it, you don't unsee it, but I'm pretty sure the string would cover that over. That's probably why that's the first time I've seen it. As far as the headstock, only thing on here is Epiphone in a mother of pearl, and you have the bullet truss rod cover, as they call it. But as far as the truss rod itself, it's the regular Gibson style. All strung back together, just like the 330, this has a mysterious buzz. I think it's actually the bridge this time, though, because if I hold it all together... Nope, now it still buzzes. Then I tried the tailpiece. No. I tried the pickup covers. No. I don't know what the buzz is on this one, but all these guitars tend to have something. So if you don't like that, you could put a string mute on here. I mean, these will also ring out. That's just comes with the territory of a hollow-bodied guitar, and even some of the semi-hollows. But anyways, let's go ahead, flip it over to the back side. Always love these dark, smoky walnut colors. This one's actually pretty light. You can see that maple wood grain on the back quite a bit. But again, you got your strap buttons in your regular locations. This one being all the way kind of here towards the back side of the guitar, the other one at your heel. But then you transition from this nice smokiness to, you know, a nice dark neck, and once again, as I was telling you guys, you get a little bit of like a ribbon flame on this. So, I mean, since that has that, I'll accept all other little factory blemishes. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't really matter. Not all of them are going to have this beautiful neck that kind of dances around in the light. You can kind of see what I'm talking about right here. This kind of like line and streak, and then as you follow it, as the light changes angles, you know, it's just kind of cool. And the back, it is marked Made in USA, just like the rest of the Gibson USA brethren, and our regular style serial number. And notice, these tuners, despite being Kluson in style, they're actually Grover Deluxes with the little metal buttons. And our last spec to capture here is the weight, 6.5 pounds pretty much, 6 pounds, 7.7 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug this in, and hear how it sounds. Okay, let's go ahead and run through the tones of this. Right away, this feels better than that 330 to me. I think it comes down to the neck profile just being a little bit more rounded, and I'm really starting to dig the appeal of, you know, this pick guard with the black pickup covers, and just this whole finish is really kind of cool. So let's go ahead and run through these tones, starting with our bridge pickup. Interesting. So it still has that absolutely gorgeous neck pickup to it. But the bridge just comes to life a bit more on this particular example. It's not overly bright and attacking though. Then that middle position is great for chords. Okay, so far, really impressed with the clean tones. This is exactly what I'm in the mood for today. Try to do some distortion. Now, naturally being a hollow body, we're going to get some squealing. Now, surprisingly, there's not a lot of squeal to this one. I mean, a little bit. Now that we know all about the Epiphone Casino, the new USA Made version 1, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Now, pulling it straight out of the case, I wasn't necessarily convinced. It felt kind of like a Gibson, but it didn't look like a Gibson. And unfortunately, we had a little bit of a rough time on the QC check. I mean, a lot of it's just small cosmetic blemishes that really, I mean, can you see it here in the regular lighting situations? Not really, you kind of have to be looking for it. At the end of the day, I started to warm up to this particular finish because I really like the pickup covers that it's got going on, and the back on this one just happens to be very gorgeous. A little bit darker, and despite that probably being a mistake, it's actually kind of cool. But once I plugged this thing in, yes, I really did enjoy the tones out of this thing. Granted, mainly just the clean tones for this one. Like, it didn't sound terrible distorted. I thought the bridge pickup was the most useful in that territory. But I think this guitar, you know, with its general heritage and the most famous players of them, you're going to be wanting to do some sort of a clean tone anyway. So I think for that, they really nailed these pickups. So at the end of the day, should you buy one of these brand new USA Made Casinos? Ultimately, I would say that is up to you to decide. Do you really like the Epiphone Casino model, and have you always wanted a slightly higher end version than the import ones that have been recently offered brand new? If so, yes, definitely get one. However, if you're like a Gibson fan and you're just kind of curious about these ones, probably still go for the Gibson one, in my opinion. I mean, they're really not even that much more expensive to get the Gibson name brand. But being a USA made Epiphone, I mean, that's nothing to really sneeze at or be like, oh, I have an inferior guitar, because you don't. I mean, it's still made at the Gibson plant. It just has a different headstock and branding on it. But I think it just really comes down to, have you always liked the Casino? And that's exactly what this market is for. And there's definitely enough people to justify Gibson doing this. So at the end of the day, I actually did like the way that this one sounded better than the 330 that we reviewed just a couple of days ago. So Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at these new Epiphone USA Made Casinos with me today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. As always, if you're interested in being the next owner of one of these demo guitars, you can check them out on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. There's some links in the description.